All right, so today we're back. We're going to do another piece of pottery, which is centering. I've got my potato to throw down. So the first step is throwing it down, hopefully in the middle, but we'll see how it goes. Not bad. And the next is we're going to just kind of nudge it into place. Not too bad. All right. So I was taught to spin the wheel and just gently pat it a little bit to try and encourage it into a central sort of shape before I get the wheel really going and have it possibly tip off. So it's not bad. It's roughly conical, relatively in the center. There's the markings on the wheel head, which are helpful in figuring out if it's somewhat in the right spot. And now I'm going to try and give it a good solid push to make sure it's actually stuck down to the wheel and get started centering. Okay. After this, mostly what I do is use my hands. I lock one in firmly, lock the other one in around the thumb, and try and hold them together to make sure that the clay pushes itself into the center. I'm not really pushing it, it's pushing itself. We cone up and down to help us with centering, just because it helps kind of move the clay along, get it all aligned. But really, as far as things go, you don't have to go up and down. You can just kind of hold steady. This process is a lot easier with a smaller piece of clay like this. This one's about 450 grams. I found that with anything over about a kilogram, I tend to need to sort of use a lot more pressure and work my way from the bottom upwards. It's easier to center up at the top, but then the bottom's still out of joint. Mine's not perfect, but you can kind of see that it's relatively even. It's not got a lot of wiggle in it. Throwing on the wheel is one of those things where it's really easy to see how out of center it is when the wheel's moving, and then it stops and it looks fine. I'm pretty happy with that. Alright, so since I'm happy with how this is centered, I'm going to do the things not to do, or the things that happen quite often, and let's see if I can get it out of center. So, ways to do that include going at it really quickly or letting go of it really quickly. So if you kind of push it suddenly, it gets a little bit more of a wibble wobble to it. Or if you take your hands off really quick, it can also increase the wobble. So let's try and get it back in the center a little bit. It's not so bad. One of the things I tend to find is if my hands get sticky and I don't keep enough moisture on, I tend to get different spots that are more or less stuck to my hands, and that can pull it out of center. Another issue that can happen is, you see I've got this big ring at the bottom. That's where my clay is really attached firmly to the base. You don't want it to spread too far out, so you do try and nudge it in, but if you throw it down and it doesn't stick, or if there's water underneath, the clay can actually spin itself off when you're trying to get it centered, particularly if you're pushing a little firmly or if your hands are not quite slippery enough. So in that case, I pushed a little too hard on it. I was kind of trying to force it instead of letting it move itself. And now my hands are quite dry and it's all quite tacky. Yep, got out of center of it again. I find if I don't leave enough of the base firmly attached, it's easier for it to kind of try and wobble itself off. It's fun playing with it sometimes though, seeing how far out you can get it and then get it back in. There we go, back in center.